The tranquil path of Zen wisdom. In the mist-shrouded valley of Kyoto, beneath a sky that seemed to hold secrets older than time, there stood an ancient temple. Its weathered stones whispered stories of centuries, of monks who had come seeking wisdom and left with silence in their hearts. The temple's towering Bodhi tree stretched its ancient branches toward the heavens, casting a gentle shade over the courtyard where the wind carried the soft scent of cherry blossoms. But beneath the serene surface of this sacred place, a hidden truth lay buried. There, in the quiet embrace of the temple, stood an elderly monk, his robe a warm, radiant golden hue, his head gently bowed, a string of prayer beads slipping through his steady fingers. His face, lined with the wisdom of years, radiated a calm serenity, his eyes kind, his gentle smile like a quiet sunrise. But this monk was not always so serene. His name was Master Hiroshi, a name whispered with respect by those who had come seeking his wisdom. Yet, even he had once walked a path of confusion, a path where his mind was a storm, and his soul was restless. Have you ever felt that way? As if your choices weren't entirely your own, as if your life was a script written by someone else, and you were merely a puppet, dancing to strings you could not see? Have you ever smiled when you wanted to cry, agreed when you wanted to say no, stayed silent when your soul screamed to speak? Have you ever looked in the mirror and seen not a face, but a mask shaped by the fear of rejection, by the hunger for approval, by the desperate need to belong? This was once Master Hiroshi's life, a life spent pleasing others, a life spent performing, a life that was never truly his own. But he did not know it. Like so many, he believed that his thoughts were his own, that his feelings were his truth, that his choices were his freedom. He did not see the invisible prison that surrounded him, the prison of manipulation, not by others, but by his own unguarded mind. Manipulation. It is a word that conjures images of villains, of clever liars, of those who twist the truth for their gain. But the most dangerous kind of manipulation is not what others do to you. It is what you unknowingly do to yourself. It is the voice in your mind that tells you that you are not enough, that you must change to be loved, that your worth is measured by the opinions of others. It is the silent whisper that convinces you to betray yourself, to abandon your dreams, to hide your true self behind a mask of conformity. This is the hidden prison of the mind, and Master Hiroshi lived within it, his every thought shaped by fear, his every choice a desperate bid for approval. He did not see the chains that bound him because they were invisible, made of thoughts, of beliefs, of whispered lies that had become his truth. But something within Master Hiroshi refused to die. A quiet voice, buried beneath the noise, whispered of freedom, of a life not ruled by fear, of a peace that could not be shaken. It was this voice that led him to the quiet path of self-discovery, to the ancient temple beneath the Bodhi tree, where he now stood, his fingers moving rhythmically along the string of prayer beads, his mind as calm as the still waters of the temple pond. His journey began with a single question, a question that had haunted him in his youth, a question that echoed in the hearts of all who came to seek his wisdom. How do I find peace? How do I escape this chaos within me? Master Hiroshi's journey was not a journey of escape. It was a journey of awakening, for he soon realized that the prison he sought to escape was not around him, but within him. It was a prison of thoughts, of beliefs, of emotions he did not understand. It was a prison where the chains were made of his own mind. One quiet morning, as the first rays of sunlight danced through the leaves of the Bodhi tree, Master Hiroshi's teacher, a wise and gentle monk named Master Ren, stood beside him. In the stillness, Master Ren spoke, his voice like a soft breeze. Peace is not something you find. It is something you remember. But first, you must see the prison you have built around yourself. Master Hiroshi's brow furrowed. A prison? I don't understand. Master Ren gestured to the tranquil pond beside them. Look at the water, Hiroshi. When it is still, it reflects the sky perfectly. But when it is disturbed, he reached down, gently touching the water's surface, and ripples spread, shattering the clear reflection. This is your mind. It is not the world that distorts your peace. It is your restless thoughts, your unguarded mind. Master Hiroshi stared at the ripples, his heart pounding. But how'd I still it? How'd I escape this prison? Master Ren's voice was a whisper, but it seemed to echo through the air. By seeing it for what it is, by understanding that the chains that bind you are thoughts, not reality, and by letting them go. Master Hiroshi's journey was not one of running away, but of returning to the silence within, returning to the stillness beneath his thoughts. He began to spend hours beneath the great Bodhi tree, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his breaths slow and deep. He watched his thoughts rise and fall like clouds in the sky. But he did not chase them. He let them pass. In time, he saw a truth that few ever see, that the mind is like a mirror. It can reflect truth, but only when it is still, when it is disturbed by thoughts, by desires, by fears. It distorts the world, turning shadows into monsters, whispers into screams. Master Hiroshi's peace did not come from escaping the world, but from understanding it. He saw that his thoughts were not his enemy. They were his teachers. Each fear was a lesson. Each desire was a mirror. And as he learned to observe them without judgment, without attachment, he began to see the chains that had once bound him, and one by one, he let them fall. The young monk became the wise Master Hiroshi, not by gaining something, but by letting go. And those who came to seek his wisdom found not a teacher who gave answers, but a guide who taught them to look within. This is the story of Master Hiroshi, but it is also your story. For the prison he once lived in is a prison we all know. And the path he walked is a path that is open to each of us, if we have the courage to walk it. If you are ready to begin this journey with Master Hiroshi, if you are ready to see the truth of your own mind, if you are ready to remember the peace that has always been yours, then stay with us. Subscribe to our channel, Buddhism in Every Moment, where we explore the wisdom of Zen, the path to inner peace, and the journey to true freedom. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful, life-changing content like this. 2. The Power of Silence, Mastering Inner Peace. In the tranquil sanctuary of the ancient temple, where the golden sunlight filtered softly through the leaves of the great Bodhi tree, the kind, wise monk sat in serene stillness, his golden robe draped gracefully around him, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers, one bead at a time. His face was calm, his eyes half closed, and his breath was slow and steady. The world around him seemed to move in harmony with his quiet presence. But this peaceful monk, who seemed to embody calm itself, was not always so serene. There was a time when his mind was a restless sea, a storm of thoughts and emotions that never ceased. He, too, had known the chaos of a wandering mind, the torment of fears and doubts that whispered endlessly in the quiet of the night. He had once believed that peace was something to be found outside, in quiet places, in kind words, in the approval of others. But life had taught him a deeper truth. His journey to silence began with a lesson from his master. It was a misty morning, and the young monk had been tasked with sweeping the temple courtyard. But his mind was not on his task. His thoughts raced, replaying an argument with a fellow monk. His heart stirred with anger and hurt. Noticing the young monk's troubled expression, the old master approached him. "My child, why do you look so disturbed?" the master asked gently. "I cannot quiet my mind, master," the young monk replied, his voice tinged with frustration. "My thoughts are like a storm. They will not stop." The master smiled and gestured to the tranquil pond at the edge of the temple grounds. "Come with me," he whispered. Together, they stood by the clear, still water. The master reached down and touched the surface with his fingers, creating ripples that danced across the pond. "Look at the water, my child. When it is disturbed, it cannot reflect clearly. Your mind is the same. The more you stir it with thoughts, with anger, With fear, the less clearly you see. But how can I quiet it? The young monk asked, his voice desperate. Not by force, the master replied. Silence is not something you create. It is something you return to. It is always there, beneath the noise. From that day, the young monk began a new practice. Each morning, he would sit beneath the great Bodhi tree, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his breath slow and steady. At first, his mind was a storm, thoughts racing, memories rising, fears whispering, but he did not fight them. He did not cling to them. He simply watched, like a silent observer, letting them rise and fall. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and slowly, the storm began to calm. The thoughts that had once seemed so loud became distant whispers. The fears that had once gripped his heart lost their power. He began to see his thoughts not as truths, but as passing clouds, drifting across the vast sky of his mind. He understood that silence was not the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness. It was the stillness beneath the noise, the quiet center within him that could not be shaken. It was a place of peace, not because it was empty, but because it was full of presence, full of understanding, full of calm. But his journey did not end with his own peace. As his silence grew, so did his compassion. Those who came to him in pain, in fear, in confusion would sit beside him beneath the Bodhi tree. Some spoke of their struggles, their doubts, their regrets. Others simply sat in silence, feeling the quiet strength of his presence. One day, a young woman came to the temple, her face pale with worry. Master, I cannot escape my thoughts. They tell me I am worthless, that I will never find happiness. They are so loud, I cannot hear anything else. The monk smiled gently, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers. Sit with me, my child. Together they sat in silence. The woman's mind was a storm, her thoughts racing, her heart pounding. But the monk did not speak. He did not try to comfort her with words. He simply sat, his presence calm, his breath slow and steady. His silence was not empty. It was a silent embrace, a quiet light that seemed to soothe the air around them. Slowly, the woman's breathing began to slow. Her thoughts seemed to lose their grip. In the stillness, she began to hear something she had never heard before, the soft, gentle voice of her own heart, whispering beneath the noise. It was not a voice of fear. It was a voice of peace. Tears filled her eyes. Master, how did you quiet my mind? I did not quiet your mind, my child, the monk replied, his eyes warm with compassion. I simply gave you the space to hear your own silence. It has always been there. You have simply forgotten it. From that day on, the woman returned to the temple, not to speak, but to sit in silence beside the monk. And in that silence, she found a peace that no words could give. The monk taught that silence is not just the absence of noise. It is the presence of clarity. It is a mirror that reflects the true nature of your mind, showing you the thoughts, the fears, the desires that rise within you. But in that reflection, you also discover a deeper truth, that you are not those thoughts. You are the one who sees them. You are the silence beneath them. And in that silence, you are free. As the years passed, the monk's silence became a light that drew many to the temple. But it was not the light of words, of teachings, of doctrines. It was the light of presence, of calm, of quiet strength. Those who came to argue found their anger fading in the stillness. Those who came to question found their doubts answered without a single word. Those who came in despair found a peace that words could not touch. One evening, as the golden light of the setting sun bathed the temple courtyard, a young monk approached the wise master. Master, how can you be so peaceful? How can you remain so silent, even when others speak of pain, of suffering, of chaos? The monk smiled, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers. Because, my child, I have learned that true peace is not something you seek. It is something you remember. It is always there, within you, beneath the noise. Silence is not an escape from the world. It is the presence of understanding. And so, the monk lived in his silence, a silence that was not empty, but full, full of presence, full of compassion, full of peace. His silence was not just the absence of sound. It was the presence of his own true self, a self that was calm, unshaken, and free. 3. The gift of gratitude, a lesson from the golden fields. The morning sun cast a warm, golden glow over the vast fields of ripe grain, their golden stalks swaying gently in the breeze like an endless ocean of light. Birds sang softly in the trees lining the fields, and the sky stretched out, a canvas of endless blue. In this serene landscape, the wise monk walked slowly, his golden robe flowing softly around him, his prayer beads slipping one by one through his fingers. His gaze was calm, his steps unhurried, his heart at peace. But he had come here not just for the beauty of the fields, he had come for a lesson. The monk's journey had led him to a small village nestled among the golden fields. It was a humble place, where farmers worked the land from dawn till dusk, their hands rough but their hearts warm. Yet despite the bounty of their harvest, the villagers were troubled. They spoke of hardships, of failed crops from the past, of debts that seemed to shadow their lives. Their faces were marked by worry, their voices tinged with bitterness. Gratitude was a word rarely spoken here. One day, as the monk walked through the village, he saw an elderly farmer sitting by the roadside, his face lined with years of toil. The old man sighed heavily, his gaze fixed on the fields. Another year, another harvest, he muttered, but it is never enough. Always there is something lacking. The monk approached gently, his voice soft as the breeze. Why do you say it is never enough, my friend? The farmer looked up, surprised to see the kindly monk. Because, master, though we harvest much, our debts grow. Though we work, our hands never rest. There is always something more to be done, something we do not have. The monk nodded, his gaze drifting over the golden fields. Tell me, old friend, when you look at these fields, what do you see? I see work, the farmer replied, his voice weary. I see labor. I see another year of struggle. The monk smiled, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers. And yet, my friend, I see a miracle. I see the earth giving its abundance. I see the sun, the rain, the soil, each playing their part to bring forth life. I see 1,000 golden blessings swaying in the breeze. The farmer frowned, his eyes narrowing. Blessings? Master, you speak of blessings, but I see only burdens. The monk's smile did not waver. Perhaps it is not the fields that are a burden, but the eyes with which you see them. The old farmer was silent, his gaze shifting back to the fields. The monk continued, his voice calm but gentle. Gratitude, my friend, is not simply thanking what we have. It is seeing what we have with new eyes. It is a light that reveals the beauty hidden in the ordinary. Intrigued but unconvinced, the farmer followed the monk as he walked slowly along the edge of the fields. As they walked, the monk pointed to the sky. Look at the sun, so warm and bright. It asks nothing of you, yet it gives life to your crops. They came to a small stream, its waters clear and cool. Look at this water, always flowing, always giving. It asks nothing, yet it nourishes your fields. The monk then reached down, taking a handful of soil in his hand. And this earth, so humble beneath our feet, yet it cradles the seeds, giving them a place to grow. The farmer's gaze softened. He had seen these things 1,000 times, but never like this. Gratitude is the art of seeing clearly. The monk whispered, it is the quiet realization that even in the simplest moments, we are surrounded by blessings. That evening, the monk sat beneath a great tree at the edge of the village. The golden light of the setting sun bathed the fields, turning them into a sea of gold. The villagers gathered, curious to hear the words of the wise monk. And so he spoke, his voice gentle but clear. My friends, many of you see only the burdens of your lives. You see your struggles, your debts, your disappointments, but you are like a man standing in the midst of a great treasure, yet too busy counting his troubles to see it." The villagers murmured, some nodding, others frowning. Gratitude is not the denial of your hardships. The monk continued. It is the recognition of your blessings. It is the light that makes even the smallest gift shine. It is the peace that comes from knowing that you have enough, even when you do not have everything. One young woman, her hands rough from work, spoke up, "But Master, how can we be grateful when our lives are filled with struggle?" The monk smiled, "Because struggle is a part of life, just as the rain is a part of the harvest. But look beyond the struggle. See the strength it has given you. See the wisdom it has taught you. See the beauty that remains, even in the midst of hardship." He told them a story of his own youth, of a time when he had wandered through a desolate land, hungry and weary, yet had found a single blossom growing in the dry earth. And in that moment, his heart had been filled with gratitude, not for what he lacked, but for the beauty that still existed. The villagers listened, their hearts quiet, their minds reflecting on the monk's words. And as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, the monk's voice softened. Gratitude is not a debt you owe. It is a gift you give to yourself. It is a light that can turn a dark day into a moment of peace. It is a strength that can lift the heaviest burden. It is a seed that, when planted in the heart, grows into a tree of joy. One by one, the villagers bowed to the monk, their hearts touched. The old farmer, his eyes moist, approached the monk. "Master, you have opened my eyes. I see now that I have been blind to my own blessings." The monk placed a gentle hand on the farmer's shoulder. "Remember, my friend, gratitude is not about changing your life. It is about changing the way you see it." From that day on, the village began to change. The farmers still worked the fields. The seasons still changed, and challenges still came, but there was a quiet warmth in the air, a light in their eyes. They began to share more, to help one another, to speak of their blessings instead of their troubles. And in their hearts, a quiet peace began to grow. The monk continued his journey, his golden robe flowing softly in the breeze, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers. But he carried with him a light, the light of gratitude. A light that he had shared, a light that would continue to shine long after he had gone. But his journey was far from over, for beyond the golden fields lay mountains veiled in mist, where a deeper truth awaited, a truth about the nature of fear, and the secret of true courage. And so, the monk walked on, his steps light, his heart open, and his silence filled with wisdom. 4. Letting go of anger. The lesson of the flowing river. The mist hung thick over the forest, a silken veil that softened the edges of the towering trees and shrouded the mountain paths in a quiet mystery. The monk, his golden robe a warm glow against the pale mist, walked slowly along the winding trail. His prayer beads slipped through his fingers, each bead a silent breath, a gentle reminder of his calm and his clarity. Yet today, his thoughts were drawn to a distant village nestled by the banks of a great, flowing river, a village burdened by anger. When the monk arrived, the village was tense, like the air before a storm. Faces were drawn, voices were sharp, and a heavy sense of resentment seemed to linger in the air. The villagers spoke of a feud that had torn them apart, two families, once friends, now bitter enemies. It had begun with a simple misunderstanding, but words had turned to insults, and insults to hatred. Brothers who once laughed together now looked at each other with cold eyes. Mothers who once shared their harvests now closed their doors. The monk walked through the village, his calm presence a quiet contrast to the rising anger that seemed to grip every heart. He saw two young men, brothers from the feuding families, standing by the river's edge, their faces twisted with rage. They shouted, their words sharp as knives, their hands clenched. One of them, in his fury, picked up a stone and hurled it into the river. The water splashed and rippled, the waves spreading, but the river did not stop. It flowed on, carrying the disturbance away, leaving no trace of the conflict. The monk approached, his voice soft but clear. "My young friends, why do you fight? He stole from us," one of the brothers shouted, his voice trembling with anger. "He is a liar," the other spat, his fists clenched. The monk nodded gently, his gaze drifting to the flowing river. "Do you see this river?" he asked. The brothers paused, their rage momentarily faltering. "Of course we see it," one muttered. "When you threw the stone, what did the river do?" the monk asked. "It rippled, but then it flowed on," one of the brothers replied, his voice quiet. "Exactly," the monk whispered, his fingers moving slowly along his prayer beads. "The river does not hold onto the stone. It does not stop its journey because of one moment of disturbance. It flows. It lets go." The brothers were silent, their anger flickering like a dying flame. "Anger is like that stone," the monk continued. "When you hold onto it, you carry a weight that does not serve you. You disturb your own peace. Yet the world flows on. You carve scars in your own heart while time moves forward without a pause." But he wronged me," one of the brothers insisted, his voice tinged with a fading bitterness. "And does your anger make his wrongs disappear?" the monk asked gently. "Or does it carve new wounds in your own heart?" The young men looked at each other, their faces softening, confusion replacing their fury. The monk sat by the riverbank, his gaze resting on the flowing waters. "I once knew a man," he began, his voice calm as the breeze, "who was consumed by anger. He held grudges like a man clings to a burning coal, never realizing that he was the one being burned." The brothers sat beside him, listening in silence. One day, this man met a wise teacher who gave him a simple task. "Take this bowl," the teacher said, "and fill it with water from the river. But each time you feel anger, you must drop a stone into the bowl." The monk smiled, his fingers caressing the smooth surface of his prayer beads. At first, the man was confident, but soon, the bowl grew heavy with stones, the water spilling over. He struggled to carry it, each step a burden, yet his anger continued. The brothers listened, their expressions softening. It was then that the teacher spoke again. "Anger is like these stones," he said. "Each one may seem small, but together they become a weight that you must carry. And the water of peace cannot flow when the bowl is filled with stones." The monk's gaze returned to the river. The man realized that to find peace, he did not need to carry the stones. He needed to let them go. The young men looked at the flowing water, their reflections rippling on the surface. "Do you wish to carry stones in your heart?" the monk asked gently. "Or do you wish to be like this river, calm, flowing, free?" The brothers were silent for a long moment. Then one of them whispered, "But how do we let go, Master? How do we forget what was done?" "Letting go is not forgetting," the monk replied. "It is choosing not to carry the weight of resentment. It is seeing the hurt, but not allowing it to poison your peace. It is forgiving, not for their sake, but for your own." He stood, his golden robe flowing in the gentle breeze. "You do not have to force your heart to forgive. Simply see your anger for what it is, a stone in your heart. And when you are ready, place it down." The brothers looked at each other, their anger now a fading memory. Slowly, one of them bent down, picked up a stone, and tossed it into the river. The other followed, the stones sinking without a trace, the water flowing on, calm and clear. "Peace is like this river," the monk whispered, his voice a gentle breeze. "It flows not because it is never disturbed, but because it never clings." Word of the monk's wisdom spread through the village, and one by one, the villagers came to the riverbank, each bringing their own stones of anger, each listening to the soft murmur of the flowing water. One by one, they cast their burdens into the river, watching as the water carried them away. Soon, the village was transformed. Old grudges dissolved like mist, quarrels faded like shadows at dawn, and a quiet peace settled over the land. The fields seemed greener, the sky brighter, the laughter of children a song that filled the air. The monk continued his journey, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers, his golden robe glowing in the soft light. But the lesson of the flowing river remained, a lesson that would ripple through the lives of those who heard it. A quiet reminder that true peace is not the absence of disturbance, but the art of letting go. But the monk's journey was far from over, for beyond the river, there lay a village shadowed by fear, where men and women were prisoners of their own worries, where a different storm awaited. And so, with light steps and a calm heart, the monk walked on, his presence a quiet light, his wisdom a gentle breeze. 5. The mirror of self-awareness. Seeing the true self. The early morning mist wove through the trees like a delicate veil, each droplet glistening with the soft light of dawn. The monk, dressed in his warm, golden robe, his prayer beads gently slipping between his fingers, walked along the narrow forest path. His steps were slow, measured, a quiet reflection of the calm that rested in his heart. But today, his journey led him to a village that lay in the shadow of a mountain, a village where the people wore smiles that never reached their eyes, where laughter was hollow, and where a quiet sadness seemed to linger in the air. As he entered the village, he noticed the faces of the villagers, each one marked by a quiet emptiness. They spoke kindly to one another, but there was a distance in their words, a hollow cheerfulness that seemed almost practiced. The monk's calm presence drew the attention of a young woman who approached him, her smile warm but her eyes clouded. "Master," she whispered, "our village is peaceful, but I feel lost. I smile, I speak, I do what is expected, but I do not know who I am. I feel like a stranger in my own life." The monk looked at her with a gentle, knowing gaze. "Come with me," he said softly. Together, they walked to a quiet pond on the edge of the village. The water was still, a perfect mirror reflecting the trees, the sky, and their own faces. The monk paused, letting his prayer beads rest gently in his palm. "Look into this pond," he whispered. "Tell me what you see." The young woman leaned forward, her reflection staring back at her, pale and uncertain. "I see myself," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you?" the monk asked gently. "Or do you see only an image? A mask? A surface?" The woman frowned, confusion clouding her face. "Master, I do not understand." The monk smiled. "We live our lives like this reflection, seeing only the surface, believing the roles we play, the names we are given, the masks we wear. We think we are our titles, our possessions, our reputations, but these are only reflections, not the true self." He reached down, picking up a small pebble, and gently dropped it into the pond. Ripples spread across the surface, distorting the reflection. "See how easily the image is disturbed," he whispered. "A word of praise, and we smile. A word of criticism, and we frown. Our sense of self ripples with every passing thought, every fleeting emotion. We become lost in the reflections." The young woman watched, her heart pounding. "Then who am I, master? If I am not this image, then who?" The monk's voice was calm, like a soft breeze. "You are the awareness that sees the image, but is not bound by it. You are the stillness beneath the ripples, the depth of the pond, not the surface." The woman was silent, her thoughts racing. "But how do I see this true self?" she whispered. The monk's fingers moved along his prayer beads, each bead a gentle breath. "By observing without judgment, by watching your thoughts without becoming them, by feeling your emotions without being consumed by them, by seeing the masks you wear, but not mistaking them for who you are." He led her to a small, quiet clearing where a tall, ancient tree stood, its leaves whispering in the soft wind. "This tree has stood here for generations," the monk said. "It has seen storms, sunshine, seasons of growth and decay. Yet it remains, unchanged at its core. So too must you become." The woman sat beneath the tree, her back against the rough bark, her gaze drifting to the leaves that danced in the breeze. "But I do not know how to find this stillness, master. My thoughts are always racing, my emotions always pulling me. The monk smiled gently. Then begin by watching them. Close your eyes. Breathe. Feel the rise and fall of your breath, like waves on an ocean. Let your thoughts come and go, but do not chase them. Let your emotions rise, but do not drown in them. Be like the sky, vast and clear, watching the clouds pass. The woman did as he instructed, her breath slowly calming, her mind settling. She became aware of the thoughts that danced like shadows, the emotions that rose like clouds. But she did not reach for them. She simply watched. For the first time, she felt a quiet space within herself, a stillness beneath the storm. After a time, she opened her eyes, her gaze meeting the monk's serene smile. I feel something, she whispered, a quiet, a peace. The monk's voice was warm. That is your true self, the awareness beneath the thoughts, the stillness beneath the emotions. It is always there, but we forget it when we cling to the reflections, the masks. The young woman's eyes filled with tears. But Master, how'd I keep this peace? How'd I lie from this stillness? By returning to it, again and again, the monk whispered, with each breath, with each step, remember that you are the observer, not the story. You are the silence beneath the noise. And when you forget, simply return. As the sun rose higher, casting a warm, golden light over the forest, the woman stood, a quiet smile on her face. Thank you, Master. I feel lighter. The monk smiled, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers. You are not a prisoner of your thoughts. You are the one who sees. Remember this, and you will always be free. Word of the monk's wisdom spread through the village, and one by one, the villagers came to sit by the pond, watching their reflections, listening to the gentle ripple of the water. They began to see beyond the masks they wore, beyond the roles they played. They saw their own thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky, their own emotions like ripples on the pond. And in that quiet awareness, they began to remember their true selves. But the monk's journey did not end there. For beyond the village, in a distant town, a shadow loomed, a shadow of fear, where men and women were caught in a web of anxiety, believing their worth was measured by the approval of others. And so, with a calm heart and a gentle smile, the monk continued his journey, his prayer beads slipping between his fingers, his golden robe flowing in the soft breeze. For he knew that his journey was not just to teach others, but to help them remember, to see beyond the surface, beyond the masks, and to awaken to the vast, unshakable peace of their true selves. 6. The strength of compassion. The wounded sparrow. The morning sun cast a gentle, golden light over the quiet village, its rays spilling over the thatched rooftops, glistening on the dew-kissed leaves, and painting the fields in hues of amber. The air was crisp, carrying with it the fresh scent of pine and wildflowers. Along the narrow path leading to the temple, the monk walked with a serene, gentle smile, his golden robe draped gracefully around him, and his prayer beads slipped silently between his fingers. His calm presence seemed to blend with the quiet of the morning, a silent blessing over the land. As he walked, his gaze wandered across the forest beside the path, where the sunlight danced through the leaves, casting shifting shadows on the ground. It was then that he heard it, a faint, desperate chirping, a tiny voice filled with fear and pain. He stopped, his kind eyes scanning the forest floor until they settled on a small, struggling form. There, caught in the tangled roots of a fallen tree, was a tiny sparrow. Its wings fluttered weakly, and its soft brown feathers were matted with dirt. The bird's tiny chest heaved with frightened breaths, and its bright eyes flicked wildly in fear. The monk's heart stirred with a gentle ache. He knelt slowly beside the struggling creature, his movements calm, his touch gentle. "Be still, little one," he whispered, his voice a soothing murmur. His fingers carefully worked to free the bird's trapped wing, entangling the twisted roots with patience and care. The sparrow shivered, its tiny heart racing beneath his touch, but it did not fight him. At last, the monk freed the sparrow, cradling it gently in his palms. The tiny creature trembled, its beady eyes gazing up at him with a mix of fear and trust. One wing hung awkwardly, clearly injured. The monk's expression softened, his heart swelling with compassion. He stood, cradling the fragile creature against his chest, and made his way to the temple. There, he prepared a small, soft nest of fresh hay within an empty basket, carefully placing the wounded sparrow within. He brought a small bowl of fresh water and a few grains of rice, setting them gently beside the bird. Days passed, and the monk tended to the sparrow with quiet devotion. Each morning, he would sit beside the little nest, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his voice a soft, soothing murmur of ancient chants. The sparrow grew calmer, its trembling fading as it watched the gentle monk, as though it too found peace in his presence. One morning, as the golden light of dawn spilled through the temple's open doorway, the monk entered to find the sparrow standing, its tiny feet steady, its wings fluttering. A soft smile touched his lips. "You are strong now, little one," he whispered. "It is time for you to fly." He carried the basket to the temple garden, where the soft breeze stirred the leaves and the scent of blossoms filled the air. Gently, he lifted the sparrow in his hands. The tiny creature hesitated, looking up at him with a moment of quiet, silent gratitude, and then, with a flutter of wings, it soared into the open sky, its song a bright, joyful melody. The monk stood beneath the clear blue sky, his eyes following the tiny bird until it was just a speck in the distance. But even as it disappeared, a quiet warmth lingered in his heart, a warmth born not from the joy of the sparrow's freedom, but from the simple, silent act of compassion. But as he turned to leave, he noticed a young boy standing at the garden gate, his wide eyes filled with awe. The boy approached, his voice a hushed whisper. "Master, why did you care so much for that little bird? It is just a sparrow. Its life is so small, so insignificant." The monk's kind smile deepened. "There is no life too small to be worthy of compassion, my child, whether it is a sparrow or a man. Suffering is suffering, and a kind heart does not measure the worth of those it helps." The boy's eyes shimmered with quiet wonder. "But master, how can we show kindness to all? There is so much suffering in the world. We cannot help everyone." The monk's gaze softened, his prayer beads slipping gently between his fingers. "No, we cannot help everyone, but we can help those who are within our reach. We can choose to be a light in the darkness we find, to bring warmth where there is cold, to offer comfort where there is pain. Compassion is not about changing the world. It is about touching the life before you." The boy was silent, his young mind absorbing the quiet wisdom of the monk's words. "But master, is it not painful to care so deeply? To feel the suffering of others?" The monk smiled, a quiet, gentle smile that seemed to hold the wisdom of countless dawns. "Yes, my child. True compassion is not without pain. It is to open your heart, knowing it may ache, knowing you may share in the sorrow of others. But it is in this very pain that we find our strength. For in choosing to care, we choose to be more than our fears, more than our selfishness. We become a light for others. And in that light, we too are warmed." The boy's gaze was filled with quiet awe. "So, compassion is strength?" The monk nodded. "Yes, compassion is the greatest strength of all. It is the courage to care, the courage to love, even when it is difficult, even when it hurts. It is the gentle touch that heals, the kind word that soothes, the silent presence that comforts." The boy bowed deeply, his young heart touched by the monk's words. And as the monk turned, his prayer beads slipping gently between his fingers, the boy watched him with a newfound light in his eyes. The monk's journey continued, his golden robe flowing gently in the breeze, his footsteps light upon the earth, and wherever he went, his quiet, gentle presence brought comfort to those he met, a kind word to the weary, a warm smile to the sorrowful, a gentle hand to the suffering. For he knew that the true strength of compassion was not in the grand gestures, not in the great acts that drew praise, but in the quiet, simple kindness given without expectation. It was in the small, silent moments where a heart reached out to another, asking for nothing in return. But his journey was far from over. Beyond the village lay a place where men and women lived in the shadow of anger, where grudges burned like quiet embers, and where forgiveness was a distant, fading memory. And so the monk continued on his path, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his calm, gentle smile a silent blessing upon the world, for he knew that his journey was not just to share wisdom, but to show the quiet, gentle power of a compassionate heart. 7. The wisdom of non-attachment, the broken vase. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden light over the quiet temple courtyard. The monk, dressed in his flowing yellow robe, walked with measured steps, his prayer beads slipping silently between his fingers. His face was serene, his eyes gentle, a quiet smile resting upon his lips. Birds sang softly from the branches above, and a cool breeze stirred the leaves, creating a gentle rustle like a whispered blessing. But beneath this peaceful scene, a quiet lesson awaited. A lesson that would test the monk's understanding of one of the most profound teachings of his path, non-attachment. In the temple, there was a vase, a beautiful, ancient vase that had been gifted to the monks many generations ago. Its porcelain surface was painted with delicate, intricate patterns of lotus flowers, their petals unfolding with grace. The vase stood proudly in the center of the temple hall, a symbol of beauty, history, and tradition. The younger monks admired it with awe, whispering about its age, its craftsmanship, and its sacred history. To them, it was more than just a vase. It was a treasure, a symbol of the temple's long and noble heritage. But to the wise monk, it was simply a vase, a beautiful object. Yes, but nothing more. One quiet morning, as the sun's rays filtered through the temple windows, one of the younger monks, eager to clean the hall, carried the vase in his trembling hands. His eyes were wide with anxiety, his grip tight, his breath quick, and then, as though in a cruel twist of fate, his foot caught the edge of the mat. He stumbled, and in an instant, the vase slipped from his grasp. Time seemed to slow. The vase tumbled through the air, its delicate surface catching the sunlight in a shimmering dance. And then, with a sound like distant thunder, it shattered against the stone floor, scattering into countless fragments. The young monk stood frozen, his face pale, his hands trembling. The other monks gathered, their eyes wide with shock, their whispers filled with disbelief and sorrow. "The sacred vase, it is ruined," they cried. "What have you done?" The young monk's eyes filled with tears, his voice a choked whisper. I did not mean to. Please forgive me." But before the blame could grow, the wise monk stepped forward, his gentle smile unchanged, his prayer beads slipped through his fingers, his calm presence a quiet light in the tense air. He knelt by the shattered vase, his fingers gently touching the fragments. "Be still, my child," the monk said softly, his voice a gentle breeze. "It is only a vase." The young monk stared at him, his tears still flowing. "But master, it was so precious, so old, so sacred." The monk's kind eyes met his. Yes, it was beautiful, but its beauty was always a moment, a passing gift of time. All things that are born must one day break, one day fade. Even the most delicate treasures are only visitors in this world. The other monks watched in silence as the wise monk began to gather the fragments. His touch gentle, his smile undisturbed. The vase was beautiful, yes, but beauty is not in the object. It is in the eye that beholds it, in the heart that appreciates it. And even now, as you look upon these broken pieces, there is beauty in the lesson they offer. "But master," one of the other monks whispered, "should we not mourn for what is lost?" The monk's smile deepened. To mourn is to cling, to attach oneself to what is already gone. But true peace is found in the acceptance of impermanence. Everything we hold in this life is a gift, a fleeting moment, Our joy must not depend on their permanence, but on our gratitude for having known them. The young monk's tears began to dry, his breath calming. He knelt beside the wise monk, helping to gather the fragments. So we must not cling to things, even those we love. We must love without clinging. The monk replied gently, we must cherish each moment, each person, each beautiful thing, but without the fear of losing them. For loss is a part of life, and to deny it is to deny life itself. As they gathered the pieces, the monk continued, his voice a quiet, soothing melody. When we hold too tightly to what we love, we become prisoners of our own fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of sorrow. But when we learn to love without attachment, we become free. We become like the river that flows, never grasping the water that passes, but always moving, always alive. The young monk listened, his heart growing light, and as they finished collecting the fragments, the wise monk placed them gently in a small basket. These pieces will be buried in the garden, he whispered. There, they will return to the earth, just as all things must. The monks followed him to the garden, where he knelt by the soft earth, his hands cradling the broken pieces. He whispered a quiet blessing, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers, and then he covered the fragments with soil. The earth embraced them, as it embraces all things that return to it. The sun rose higher, its light spilling over the garden, dancing on the leaves and flowers. The young monk stood beside the wise monk, his heart filled with a quiet peace. Master, he whispered, I understand now. To love without attachment is to love without fear. The monk's gentle smile warmed him. Yes, my child, to love without attachment is to be free. For when you no longer cling to what is temporary, you discover the eternal peace that lives within you. As they returned to the temple, the young monk felt a lightness he had never known before. He saw the world with new eyes, the flowers that bloomed, knowing they would one day wither, the leaves that danced, knowing they would one day fall, the sunlight that touched his face, knowing it would one day fade into twilight. But this knowledge did not bring sorrow. It brought joy, a joy that came not from trying to hold on, but from simply being present, from cherishing each moment as it came, from loving without the need to possess. And as he walked beside the wise monk, he whispered, Master, if everything is impermanent, then even my sorrow must pass. The monk's smile was a soft light. Yes, my child, even sorrow is a passing cloud in the sky of your mind. Watch it, but do not cling to it. Let it come, let it go. The young monk's heart soared with a quiet, gentle freedom. He looked at the world around him, the sunlight dancing on the leaves, the breeze whispering through the trees, the laughter of the other monks. Everything was beautiful because everything was temporary, and in that beauty, he found a peace that could not be broken. But the monk's journey was not yet over, for beyond the temple, in the village below, there were those who lived in the shadow of pride, who clung not to things, but to their own image, to their own sense of superiority. And the monk knew that his wisdom was needed there. So he continued his path, his golden robe flowing gently around him, his prayer beads slipping silently between his fingers. For he was a light in the world, not because he held on to anything, but because he had learned to let go. 8. The power of humility. The lesson of the empty cup. In the stillness of the morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky with hues of gold and amber, the wise monk walked silently along the winding path that led down from the mountain temple. His yellow robe flowed gently with each step, and his prayer beads slipped gracefully between his fingers. His face, kind and serene, reflected the quiet peace of his heart. But the world beyond the temple was not always so calm. In the bustling village below, pride and arrogance often bloomed like wild thorns among the flowers of daily life. It was here, in this world of restless ambitions and endless comparisons, that the monk's gentle wisdom was most needed. One day, as the monk walked through the village square, he noticed a crowd gathered outside a grand tea house. At its center stood a young scholar, dressed in fine robes, his voice loud and confident. He spoke of philosophy, of wisdom, of the many texts he had studied. His words were like a torrent, flowing without pause, each one meant to impress, to dazzle, to prove his superior knowledge. The villagers listened in awe, nodding, whispering, admiring the young scholar's brilliance. But the monk stood silently at the edge of the crowd, his calm gaze observing, his heart as quiet as a still pond. As the scholar continued, his eyes fell upon the monk standing at the edge. Seeing the old man in his simple yellow robe, a slight smile of pride touched the scholar's lips. "Elder," the scholar called out, his voice clear, "you stand there quietly. Surely, you must have some wisdom to share. Or have your years left you with nothing but silence?" The crowd turned, curious, watching the monk, but the monk's gentle smile did not waver. He stepped forward, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers. "I have only come to learn, young master," he said softly, "for in the presence of wisdom, the greatest gift is to listen." The scholar's smile widened. "Then allow me to teach you," he declared. "Come, sit with me, let us share a cup of tea, and I shall fill your mind with knowledge." The monk nodded graciously, following the scholar into the tea house. They were seated at a fine table, and the scholar continued to speak, his voice flowing with theories, philosophies, and grand ideas. A servant brought a beautiful porcelain teapot and 2 delicate cups. The scholar lifted the teapot and began to pour. But as he spoke, his words grew more passionate, his gestures more dramatic, and in his eagerness to teach, he did not notice the cup before the monk filling, and then overflowing. The hot tea spilled over the rim, onto the table, pooling beneath the cup, dripping to the floor. The monk said nothing, his serene smile unchanged, but the other guests began to murmur, pointing at the growing puddle of tea. At last, the scholar noticed, his face flushed with embarrassment, and he quickly placed the teapot down. "Forgive me, master," the scholar stammered. I was too caught up in my words." The monk's eyes shone with kindness. "My young friend," he whispered, "your mind is like this cup. It is so full of your own thoughts, your own knowledge, that there is no room for anything new. How can you learn if you are already full?" The scholar's pride crumbled like dry leaves. His voice faltered, his eyes lowered. "But I have studied so much. I thought I understood so many things." The monk reached out, gently placing his warm, weathered hand on the young scholar's. "True wisdom begins with humility," he whispered. "To be truly wise is to be forever a student, to know that there is always more to learn. The empty cup receives the sweetest tea." The young scholar's eyes filled with tears, his heart heavy with a quiet shame. "Teach me, master," he whispered. "Teach me how to be truly wise." The monk smiled, his touch gentle and reassuring. "Begin by listening, not only to words, but to silence. Seek not to be admired, but to understand. Speak, not to be heard, but to share truth. And always remember, the moment you believe you have mastered wisdom, you have lost it." From that day on, the young scholar became a humble student, his pride replaced with quiet curiosity. He would visit the monk often, sitting quietly beside him beneath the shade of the ancient Bodhi tree, listening not only to the monk's words, but to the silent wisdom of the wind, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant song of birds. And as he learned to listen, his heart grew still, his words became fewer, but richer. His eyes, once filled with the fire of pride, now shone with a gentle light of humility. The villagers, who had once admired his eloquence, now admired his kindness, his patience, his quiet smile, and in his heart, he carried a simple truth, that the greatest wisdom is not in knowing all things, but in knowing that one knows nothing. One morning, as the monk and the young scholar sat beneath the great tree, a traveler approached them. "Master," the traveler called out to the monk, "I have heard of your great wisdom. I have traveled far to learn from you." The monk smiled, but before he could speak, The young scholar rose, bowing deeply. "Please, sit with us," the young scholar said. "But before you speak, take a deep breath. Empty your mind of what you think you know. Only then can you truly learn." The traveler looked surprised, then thoughtful. He sat beside them, his eyes closing, his breath slowing, a quiet smile touching his lips. And in that silence, beneath the vast sky, the three of them shared a wisdom that needed no words. For in that stillness, they were not just student and teacher. They were fellow travelers, sharing the quiet joy of humility. But even as the monk taught the lesson of the empty cup, he knew that there were other hearts that needed awakening. Beyond the village, in the valley below, there were those who clung to their grudges, who burned with anger and resentment, who believed that forgiveness was a sign of weakness. The monk knew that his journey was far from over, for there was a deeper truth that awaited those who were trapped in the darkness of their own pain. The truth that forgiveness is not a gift we give to others, but a freedom we grant to ourselves. And so, with the gentle light of the morning sun warming his face, the monk rose, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his robe flowing softly around him. His journey continued, a quiet light in a world too often blinded by its own pride. 9. Embracing solitude. The quiet forest meditation. The mist hung low over the forest, a soft, silvery veil that whispered against the leaves and draped the world in a sacred hush. The morning light filtered through the thick canopy, creating dappled patterns on the mossy earth below. Beneath the ancient, towering trees, a gentle breeze whispered, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth. Birds sang their morning hymns, their melodies a soft, distant chorus. In this tranquil sanctuary, the monk walked, his yellow robe flowing like a golden river through the mist. His bare feet moved silently over the cool, damp ground, and his prayer beads slipped gently through his fingers, each bead a quiet reminder of his steady breath. His face, calm and serene, radiated a quiet peace that seemed to blend with the forest itself. Here, among the whispering leaves and the murmuring streams, he found a refuge not just for his body, but for his soul. But this peace was not always his. There was a time when the monk had feared solitude, when the silence felt like a void, a dark mirror reflecting his doubts, his regrets, his restless thoughts. In the noise of the world, he could escape these shadows, distract himself with the busyness of life. But in solitude, there was nowhere to hide. Alone, he faced himself. It was his master who had first guided him to the forest, leading him by the hand like a child lost in the dark. They walked together beneath the towering trees, their footsteps soft on the thick carpet of leaves. The young monk's heart pounded with a quiet anxiety, his mind filled with questions. "Master, why do we come here?" he had asked, his voice a nervous whisper. "To listen," the master had replied simply. "Listen," the young monk repeated, puzzled. "But there is only silence here." The master smiled, his eyes warm with kindness. "The world is always speaking, my child, but we do not hear it because our minds are too loud." And so they sat together beneath an ancient tree, its gnarled roots embracing the earth, its branches stretching toward the sky. At first, the young monk's thoughts raced. Memories, worries, regrets, they all tumbled through his mind like leaves caught in a storm. The silence pressed in on him, heavy and oppressive, but the master said nothing. He simply sat, his own breath gentle, his eyes half closed, his face a picture of calm. The young monk watched him, and in that silent presence, he began to notice something: the soft rustle of leaves, the gentle sigh of the wind, the distant call of a bird, and beneath it all, the steady rhythm of his own breath. As the minutes passed, a quiet peace began to creep into his heart, like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. The storm of his thoughts began to calm, the racing memories and worries faded, and all that remained was the quiet whisper of the forest, the gentle pulse of his own breath, the soft rustle of his master's prayer beads. From that day on, the monk returned to the forest often. He would sit beneath the great tree, his yellow robe bright against the green of the moss, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers. He listened, not just to the forest, but to himself. He listened to the rise and fall of his thoughts, the stirrings of his emotions, the quiet whispers of his soul. In the beginning, solitude was a mirror, reflecting all his hidden fears, his buried regrets, his unfulfilled desires. But as he learned to sit in that silence, to breathe with it, to welcome it, something changed. The mirror became a window that opened to a vast, clear sky, a sky where thoughts were like passing clouds, where emotions were like gentle rain, where his soul was a wide, quiet space of peace. One morning, as the mist wove its silver veil through the trees, a young man wandered into the forest, his face pale with worry, his eyes restless. Seeing the monk sitting in quiet stillness, the young man approached, his voice a whisper of desperation. "Master, I cannot find peace. My thoughts are loud. My heart is restless. I am always afraid, always searching. What must I do?" The monk opened his eyes, his gentle gaze resting on the young man. "Sit with me, my child," he whispered. "Sit and listen." The young man hesitated, his mind already racing with doubts, with fears, but something in the monk's calm presence drew him in. He sank to the mossy ground, his knees touching the cool earth, his hands trembling slightly. "Close your eyes," the monk whispered. "Breathe. Do not try to silence your thoughts. Do not fight them. Simply watch them. Let them come. Let them go. Be the sky, not the storm." The young man closed his eyes, his breath shaky at first. Memories rose, regrets whispered, fears tightened his chest. But beneath it all, he heard the soft rustle of the leaves, the distant call of a bird, the gentle sigh of the wind, and then, the steady rhythm of his own breath. Slowly, a quiet peace began to touch his heart, like the first light of dawn breaking over a dark mountain. His thoughts continued to rise, but they no longer overwhelmed him. His fears whispered, but they no longer ruled him. He was the sky, vast and clear, and his thoughts were only passing clouds. After what felt like an eternity, the young man opened his eyes, his face soft with wonder. "Master," he whispered, "the silence, it is not empty. It is full." The monk smiled, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers. "Yes, my child. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of peace." The young man bowed deeply, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Master. I see now. I see that peace is not something I must find. It is something I must allow." The monk rose, his robe flowing softly around him. "Return here, whenever your heart is troubled," he whispered. "Sit in the silence. Listen to the forest. Listen to yourself. For the forest is not just a place. It is a mirror, a teacher, a friend." The young man smiled, his fear fading like morning mist. He turned and walked back through the forest, his steps light, his heart clear. But the monk did not follow. His journey continued, his path winding ever deeper into the forest's quiet embrace. And with each step, his soul grew lighter, his heart clearer. For he had learned that true peace is not found in the absence of noise, but in the quiet strength of solitude. Yet even as the mist lifted and the sunlight danced through the leaves, the monk knew that there were those who still struggled, who still clung to the shadows of doubt and regret, who still searched for peace in the noise of the world. And so he walked on, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers, his face serene, his heart as vast and quiet as the sky. His journey continued, for the world was full of restless souls, and his wisdom was a light for those lost in the darkness of their own thoughts. 10. The Dance of Patience, the Bamboo Grove. In the gentle embrace of dawn, a soft mist curled through the bamboo grove. The slender green stalks swayed lightly with the morning breeze, their leaves whispering a quiet song. The monk, dressed in his flowing yellow robe, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers, walked slowly along the narrow, winding path. The world was waking, But here in the bamboo grove, there was a sacred stillness, a calm that seemed to stretch beyond time. For the monk, this grove was not just a place of beauty. It was a teacher, a quiet, humble master of patience. He had come here many times before, seeking its silent wisdom, observing the way the bamboo danced with the wind, never breaking, never resisting. It swayed, it bent, but it always returned to its upright grace, its roots firm in the dark, nourishing earth. There was a story his own master had once told him, a story that had stayed with him for many years. In his youth, the monk had been impatient, quick to anger, always rushing from one task to another, his heart never at peace. His master had watched him with quiet understanding, never scolding, never judging, but always smiling with that gentle, knowing gaze. One day, as the young monk had burst into the master's hut, frustrated by his own failures, his own restless thoughts, the master had simply taken his hand and led him to this very grove. They stood in silence, the bamboo swaying around them, the wind stirring the leaves in a soft, soothing dance. "Look at the bamboo, my child," the master had whispered. "Do you see how it bends with the wind? How it dances with the breeze? It does not resist, it does not break, it does not hurry, and yet, it is strong, it is patient, it waits, it grows, it endures." The young monk had frowned, his anger still burning within him. "But master, I am not bamboo. I am a man. I have desires. I have goals. I cannot simply sway with the wind." The master had smiled, his eyes filled with a quiet light. "Oh, but you are more like the bamboo than you know. You have roots, deep within your heart. You have the strength to bend without breaking. But you have not yet learned to trust this strength. You fight the wind. You fight the world. You fight yourself. And in this struggle, you forget to dance." Those words had haunted the young monk for years. He had tried to be strong, tried to control his life, tried to force his way through every challenge. But the more he struggled, the more he broke, the more he demanded, the more he lost. He was a storm, always raging, never at peace. But the bamboo was different. It did not fight the wind. It did not cling to the earth. It did not demand to be seen or heard. It simply grew, quietly, patiently, bending with the storm but never shattering. And so, as the monk grew older, he returned to the grove again and again, watching the bamboo, listening to its silent wisdom. This morning was no different. As he walked among the swaying stalks, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, he felt a quiet joy, a deep sense of calm. He had learned to be like the bamboo, to bend without breaking, to dance with the wind of life without losing himself. But as he continued along the path, a faint sound caught his ear, the soft, muffled sobs of a child. Curious, the monk followed the sound, his gentle footsteps leading him to a small clearing. There, beneath the towering bamboo, sat a young boy, his face buried in his hands, his small shoulders trembling with quiet sobs. The monk's heart softened. He approached gently, his voice a soft whisper. "My child, why do you cry?" The boy looked up, his tear-filled eyes wide with surprise and shame. He quickly wiped his tears, trying to be strong, but the sadness in his eyes remained. I am useless, master," he whispered, his voice trembling. "No matter how hard I try, I always fail. I am weak. I am foolish. I will never be good enough." The monk smiled gently, his eyes warm with compassion. "Come, my child, walk with me." He took the boy's hand, and together they walked through the grove, the bamboo swaying lightly around them, the breeze carrying the soft, soothing rustle of the leaves. "Do you see this bamboo?" the monk asked, his voice calm and kind. "It is tall, strong, and graceful, but it did not begin this way." The boy looked up, his tears slowly drying. "What do you mean, master? This bamboo you see now was once just a tiny shoot, fragile and weak, barely visible above the soil. For many years, it seemed to grow very little. its strength hidden beneath the earth. But beneath the surface, its roots were growing, reaching deep, finding strength, finding nourishment. Only when its roots were strong did it begin to rise, tall and graceful, swaying with the wind but never breaking. The boy's eyes widened. So, it was not always strong? No, my child. It grew slowly, patiently. It did not demand to be tall. It did not fear being small. It simply grew, day by day, trusting the strength within it. The boy looked at the swaying bamboo, his face softening, his tears forgotten. Master, do you think I can be like the bamboo? The monk smiled, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers. You are already like the bamboo. My child, you are growing, even when you cannot see it. You are strong, even when you feel weak. You are patient, even when you are afraid. The boy's lips curled into a small, shy smile. But what if I fall? What if I make mistakes? The monk's smile deepened. Then you will bend, but you will not break. You will learn. You will grow. You will become stronger, just like the bamboo. The boy took a deep breath, his small chest rising with a quiet courage. Thank you, Master. I will try to be like the bamboo. The monk placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. Do not try, my child. Simply be. Grow at your own pace. Dance with the wind of life. And remember, true strength is not in never falling, but in rising again and again. As the boy ran off, his heart light, his steps filled with a new hope, the monk stood beneath the swaying bamboo, a gentle smile on his lips. He watched the boy disappear into the mist, his own heart touched by the quiet strength of patience. The bamboo whispered its quiet song, swaying with the breeze, bending but never breaking, and the monk continued his walk, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his steps soft and steady. But his journey was far from over, for beyond the grove, the world awaited, a world full of restless souls, struggling against the winds of life, searching for peace, for strength, for wisdom. And as the mist began to lift, the sunlight dancing through the leaves, the monk's face shone with a quiet light, his heart as strong and patient as the bamboo. His journey continued, his wisdom grew, and the world still needed his gentle light. 11. The Art of Forgiveness. The Withered Tree's Gift. The monk in his flowing yellow robe walked along the forest path, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers, each bead a silent whisper of peace. The forest was alive with the song of birds, the rustle of leaves, and the soft caress of the morning breeze. Yet, in the heart of this serene forest stood a tree unlike any other, a great, ancient tree. Its once vibrant branches now withered and dry, its leaves long gone, its trunk twisted and scarred. The monk stopped before the tree, his calm eyes gazing at its lifeless form. Most would see only a dying tree, a reminder of decay and loss. But the monk saw something else, a teacher, silent but wise, a master of a profound truth that many ignored. He reached out, placing his gentle hand against the rough, scarred bark, feeling the deep grooves, the places where life had once thrived. His heart filled with a quiet reverence, for this tree was not just a symbol of death, it was a testament to endurance, to survival, to silent forgiveness. As he stood there, a soft voice broke the stillness. Master, why do you touch this dead tree? The monk turned to see a young man standing behind him, his face curious but troubled. His eyes carried the weight of pain, of resentment, of anger unspoken but deeply felt. The monk smiled gently, his voice a soft whisper. This tree is not dead, my child, it is only transformed. It stands here, still rooted, still reaching for the sky. Though its leaves are gone, it is not weak, it is strong. The young man frowned, his brow furrowed. But master, it has nothing. No leaves, no fruit, no shade. It is useless, is it? The monk asked, his eyes warm. Come closer, look again. The young man hesitated, then stepped closer, his hand reaching out to touch the rough bark. As his fingers traced the twisted scars, He saw something he had not noticed before. Small shoots of green sprouting from the base. Tiny leaves pushing through the cracks. Life still flows within it. The monk whispered, "It is not bitter. It does not curse the sun for leaving it bare. It does not hate the wind for breaking its branches. It simply endures. It simply grows. Even in its scars, it finds a way to live." The young man's eyes filled with quiet awe. But it has suffered so much. How can it still grow? How can it still stand? The monk's gaze softened, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers. Because it knows a secret. My child, it knows that to live is to forgive. Not just others, but also itself. It does not cling to its lost leaves, to its broken branches. It lets go, and in letting go, it finds peace. The young man's face darkened, shadows crossing his eyes. But how can one forgive? Master, how can one forget the pain? The betrayal? I cannot forgive. I cannot forget. The monk's smile remained gentle. Forgiveness is not forgetting. My child, it is not pretending that the hurt never happened. It is not denying the scars. It is simply choosing not to let those scars poison your heart. He gestured to the tree. This tree is scarred, but it is not bitter. It has lost much, but it does not cling to its loss. It stands tall. It reaches for the light. It offers what life it has left. It is a master of forgiveness. The young man's eyes fell, his shoulders heavy. But I have been wronged, Master. They hurt me. They lied to me. They left me. How can I simply forgive them? The monk nodded, his expression understanding. Forgiveness is not a gift for them. It is a gift for you. When you hold on to anger, to pain, to bitterness, you build a prison around your own heart. You become like a tree that clings to dead leaves, never allowing new life to grow. The young man looked up, his eyes glistening with tears. But if I forgive, won't they just hurt me again? Won't they think they have won? Perhaps, the monk whispered, but is it not better to be free? To let go of their chains? To be like this tree, standing strong in its truth, unburdened by the weight of the past? A tear slipped down the young man's cheek. I don't know how, Master. I don't know how to let go. The monk placed a gentle hand on the young man's shoulder. Then begin with yourself. Forgive yourself for the pain you have carried. Forgive yourself for the anger, for the sadness, for the moments you felt weak. See them as part of your growth, just as this tree's scars are part of its strength. The young man's tears flowed freely now, his heart breaking open. But what if I cannot forget? Master, what if the pain never truly leaves me? Then do not force it to leave. The monk whispered, let it be a part of your journey, but not the whole of it. Let it be a scar, but not a wound. Let it teach you, but do not let it own you. They stood in silence, the young man's tears falling, his heart releasing the weight it had carried for so long. And as he wept, the monk stood beside him, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, each bead a quiet prayer for peace. Finally, the young man's tears slowed, his breath steadying, his eyes clear. He looked at the withered tree, at the tiny green shoots pushing through the scars, and a quiet smile touched his lips. Master, I see now. I see that I am not my pain. I am not my anger. I am not my scars. The monk smiled, his face warm with quiet joy. You are not, my child. You are the life that continues, the light that finds a way, the heart that heals. The young man bowed deeply, his voice a soft whisper. Thank you, Master. Thank you. The monk watched as the young man walked away, his steps lighter, his heart free, and as he stood before the withered tree, he felt a deep, quiet gratitude, for forgiveness was not just a word, not just an idea, it was a way of life. A way of choosing peace over pain, of choosing to heal rather than to hurt. It was a gift, not just to others, but to oneself. And as the monk continued his journey, his prayer beads slipping gently through his fingers, he knew that there were many more souls in the world, burdened by anger, chained by pain, waiting to learn the art of forgiveness. The forest whispered with the gentle rustle of leaves, the sunlight dancing through the branches, and the withered tree stood strong, a silent teacher of a timeless truth. But beyond the forest, the monk's journey continued, for there was still so much to teach, so many hearts to heal, so many souls to set free. 12. The strength of resilience. The stone path. The monk walked along the narrow mountain trail, his yellow robe flowing gently in the cool breeze, his prayer beads slipping rhythmically through his fingers. The path beneath his feet was not smooth but scattered with jagged stones, each step requiring careful balance. Yet his gaze remained calm, his expression serene. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and the distant murmur of a mountain stream. But this was not the first time the monk had walked a difficult path. His journey had taken him through forests of shadow and valleys of doubt, through storms of emotion and deserts of solitude. Each step, each struggle, had become a teacher, shaping him, strengthening him. And now, as he walked this steep, rocky path, he reflected on a simple truth: that resilience is not just the strength to endure, but the wisdom to keep moving forward, no matter the terrain. Ahead, a young boy sat on a large stone, his face twisted with frustration. His knees were scraped, his hands covered in dust, and his eyes shimmered with unshed tears. As the monk approached, the boy looked up, his voice trembling. "Master, this path is too difficult. The stones hurt my feet. I keep falling. I cannot do it." The monk paused, his kind eyes resting on the boy. He reached out, offering his hand, and the boy reluctantly took it, rising to his feet. But instead of leading him forward, the monk gently guided him to a nearby boulder, where they both sat, overlooking the winding, rocky path below. "Tell me, young one," the monk whispered, his voice calm as the mountain breeze, "what is it that makes this path difficult?" The boy frowned, his small fingers curling into fists. "The stones, master, they are sharp, they hurt me, and I keep tripping. I'm not strong enough." The monk smiled, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers. "Is it the stones that make you weak? Or is it your fear of them?" The boy's eyes widened, confusion and frustration mingling in his gaze. But they hurt. They make me fall. Falling is not failure, my child," the monk whispered. "It is only another step on the journey. Each time you fall, you learn. Each time you rise, you grow stronger." The boy looked down at his scraped knees, his anger softening into a quiet sadness. "But I don't want to fall. I don't want to struggle." The monk's smile deepened, a gentle warmth in his eyes. "And yet, without struggle, there can be no strength. Without falling, you cannot learn to rise. Look at the mountains around us. Do they fear the storms? Do they hide from the wind?" The boy shook his head slowly. "No, master. The mountains are strong, not because they avoid the storm, but because they endure it. And so must you." The boy's brow furrowed, his gaze searching the monk's calm face. "But how can I be strong like the mountains? I'm just a boy." The monk raised his hand, his fingers gently tracing the jagged scars on the rocky path below. These stones were once sharp, broken pieces, scattered by the force of the earth. But over time, the wind has worn them, the rain has smoothed them. They have endured, and in their endurance, they have become part of the mountain. He turned to the boy, his voice soft but firm. "You too are like these stones. Each struggle, each fall, each pain you endure, they are not here to break you. They are here to shape you." The boy's eyes shimmered, a quiet light beginning to shine within them. "But it still hurts." "Yes," the monk whispered, his voice filled with compassion. "Pain is a part of life, but suffering is a choice. The path may be hard, but it is your mind that decides how you walk it." The boy was silent for a long moment, his small fingers tracing the smooth beads of the monk's prayer string. "But how do I keep going, master, when it hurts so much?" The monk leaned forward, his voice a gentle breeze. "You take one step, just one, and then another. Do not look at the whole path. Do not think of the mountain's peak. Only this step, only this moment. And when you fall, you rise. When you stumble, you steady yourself. When you hurt, you breathe. And each step, no matter how small, brings you closer. The boy nodded slowly, his fear melting into quiet determination. One step, and then another. The monk's smile grew. Yes, and each step makes you stronger. Not because it is easy, but because you choose to take it. They sat in silence for a moment, the mountain breeze whispering through the trees, the sun casting gentle rays upon the rocky path below. Finally, the boy stood, his small fists unclenching, his gaze steady. I will try again, Master. I will not give up. The monk rose beside him, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers. Remember, my child, resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the strength to keep walking, even when the path is difficult. And so, the boy took his first step, then another, and another. His feet still stumbled, his knees still scraped against the stones. But he did not stop. He did not turn back. And with each step, his heart grew lighter, his spirit stronger. The monk watched him with a quiet pride, his own steps following gently behind. And as they walked, he whispered a quiet prayer, a prayer for all those who walk difficult paths, for all those who struggle but do not give up, for all those who find strength in their scars. For the monk knew that resilience was not just a lesson for the boy. It was a truth for all souls who wandered through life's challenges, a truth that every step, no matter how painful, was a step toward strength. And as the path wound higher, the forest opened to a vast view of the valley below, the sunlight painting the world in gold and green. The boy stood, breathless, his eyes wide with wonder. And for a moment, he forgot his pain. He forgot the stones, the struggle, the fear. He saw only the beauty that stretched before him. The monk stood beside him, his voice a soft whisper. Remember this, my child, the struggle is temporary, the strength it brings is forever. And in that moment, the boy smiled, his heart swelling with a quiet joy, a joy born not from ease, but from resilience. But as the monk looked to the distant horizon, he knew that their journey was far from over. For beyond the mountains, beyond the forests, there were still countless souls who struggled, who stumbled, who despaired. And his path, his purpose, was to guide them, to teach them, to walk beside them, with his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his robe flowing like golden sunlight. The monk continued his journey, his heart steady, his spirit unshaken. But the next lesson was waiting, just beyond the mountain's shadow, where the winds whispered and the world called. 13. The illusion of control. The fisherman and the sea. The wind whispered across the coastline, carrying with it the salt scent of the vast, endless ocean. Waves rose and fell, their white crests dancing beneath the gray, cloud-filled sky. Seagulls cried above, their wings cutting through the wind as they soared effortlessly. On the rocky shore, where the sea met the land in a ceaseless embrace, the monk walked slowly, his yellow robe fluttering in the breeze, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers with each steady step. As he walked, he noticed a figure by the water, a fisherman, his face tense, his hands gripping a thick, knotted rope. The fisherman was struggling, his body braced against the pull of the sea. His small boat bobbed violently in the churning waves, the rope tying it to the shore the only thing keeping it from being swept away. The man's muscles strained, his feet dug into the wet sand, and yet the boat seemed to tug against his grip like a wild, restless beast. The monk approached quietly, his gaze calm, his voice a gentle breeze. My friend, what are you trying to do? The fisherman did not turn, his eyes fixed on the boat, his voice sharp with desperation. I am trying to control it. The sea is too wild. It pulls the boat away. If I let go, I will lose everything. The monk watched for a moment, the waves crashing, the wind howling, the fisherman's struggle a battle against the might of the ocean. And what if you were to let go? The monk asked softly. Let go, the fisherman snapped, his face twisted with fear. If I let go, the sea will take it. I will lose my boat. I will lose everything I have. The monk smiled gently, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers. Or perhaps the sea will return it. Or perhaps the boat will find its own way to calm waters. But as you struggle here, holding on so tightly, you are not only losing the boat, you are losing yourself. The fisherman's grip tightened, his knuckles white, his breath quick. You do not understand. The sea is powerful. It is wild. I must control it. I must keep what is mine. The monk's voice remained calm, steady as the mountain wind. Do you believe that you can control the sea, my friend, or is it the fear of losing control that has ensnared you? The fisherman hesitated, his gaze flickering between the surging waves and the monk's serene face. But what else can I do? I cannot simply watch it drift away. The monk stepped closer, his eyes gentle but clear. Control is an illusion, my friend. You can guide your boat when the waters are calm. You can cast your net, sail with the wind, find shelter in the storm. But the sea is beyond your command. To struggle against it is to exhaust yourself, to become a prisoner of your own fear. The fisherman's arms trembled, the rope slipping slightly in his grasp. But I cannot let go. I cannot lose it. Sometimes, the monk whispered, what you fear losing is not the boat, but the sense of control you believe it gives you. But tell me, is this control bringing you peace? Or is it only giving you suffering? The fisherman stared at the monk, his chest heaving, his thoughts a storm as wild as the waves before him. The boat jerked again, the rope straining, his hands burning from the force. Finally, with a deep, shuddering breath, the fisherman's fingers loosened. The rope slipped from his grasp, falling to the wet sand. The boat drifted, its wooden hull rocking on the waves. For a moment, it seemed as though it would be swept away, lost forever. But then, the waves calmed, the wind softened, and the boat drifted gently toward the shore, settling in a quiet cove. Untouched, the fisherman stared, his mouth open in disbelief. It did not drift away. It returned. The monk smiled, his gaze on the tranquil sea. Not everything that drifts is lost, and not everything that is held tightly is truly safe. Control is an illusion, my friend. You may guide, you may steer, but you cannot command the ocean, nor can you command life. And in trying to control what is beyond your power, you only create suffering. The fisherman fell to his knees, his trembling hands pressing against the cool sand. But all my life, I have tried to control everything. My work, my family, my future. I thought if I held tightly enough, I could keep them safe. The monk knelt beside him, his voice a quiet murmur, like the whisper of the tide. To love is not to control. To protect is not to possess. Like the sea, life is vast and ever-changing. You cannot cage it. You cannot force it to obey. But you can learn to move with it, to accept its currents, to trust in its flow. Tears filled the fisherman's eyes, his fear melting into quiet surrender. But how do I trust? How do I let go? The monk's fingers moved along his prayer beads, his voice a gentle chant. By knowing that you are the sky, not the storm. By remembering that peace is not found in control, but in acceptance. By letting go, not of your love, but of your need to cling. The fisherman looked out at the sea, the waves now gentle, the boat resting safely on the shore. I see now. I see that I was not protecting the boat. I was a prisoner of my fear. The monk smiled, his golden robe swaying in the breeze. And now you are free. Free not because you control the sea, but because you no longer fear it. They sat together on the shore, the wind playing with their hair, the waves whispering their ancient song. And as the sun broke through the gray clouds, casting a warm, golden light across the water, the fisherman felt a quiet peace rise within him, a peace born not from control, but from surrender. The monk rose, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his gaze on the endless horizon. Remember, my friend, Life is like the sea. It is vast. It is wild. It is beyond your control. But it is also beautiful. And it is always flowing. Do not cling. Do not struggle. Simply be like the boat, guided, but not bound. The fisherman bowed deeply, his heart light, his fear faded like mist beneath the rising sun. Thank you, Master. I will remember. And as the monk continued his journey along the shore, his golden robe a gentle glow against the blue sky, his mind was already moving forward, his spirit calm as the tranquil sea. For beyond the shore, beyond the horizon, the next lesson awaited, like a distant island shrouded in mist. But the lesson of control had been revealed, that true freedom is not in grasping tightly, but in letting go, not in commanding the waves, but in flowing with them, not in mastering the world, but in mastering the self. And the monk's path stretched onward, the wind at his back, the sky vast above, and the sea, wild, free, and eternal, singing its endless song. 14. The journey to true inner peace. The wind whispered softly through the ancient forest, carrying the scent of moss and wildflowers, while the sun cast a warm, golden glow over the lush greenery. Birds sang their gentle melodies, and the leaves rustled like a soothing lullaby. Amid this serene embrace of nature, the monk walked slowly, his steps light yet deliberate, his golden robe flowing like a river of sunlight. His fingers moved rhythmically along his prayer beads, each bead a silent moment of gratitude, each breath a whisper of calm. The monk's journey had taken him across mountains and valleys, through bustling villages and quiet forests. He had witnessed joy and sorrow, anger and forgiveness, pride and humility. Each encounter had been a lesson, each experience a reflection of the truth he sought, the truth that true peace could not be found in the changing world around him, but only within himself. As he walked, memories rose in his mind like petals carried by the breeze. He remembered the grateful farmer in the golden fields, who had taught him the beauty of giving without expectation. He remembered the flowing river, whose calm waters had shown him the futility of clinging to anger. He recalled the broken vase, a reminder of the wisdom of non-attachment, and the empty cup, which revealed the power of humility. Yet beyond all these lessons, a deeper truth had begun to take root in his heart, that the journey to true inner peace was not a path of collecting wisdom, but of letting go. It was not about becoming more, but about shedding the illusions that clouded the mind, until only the pure, tranquil essence of the soul remained. The monk's steps led him to the edge of a quiet lake, its surface like a polished mirror reflecting the sky above. He sat by the water, his prayer beads resting gently in his lap, his gaze soft and unwavering. In the stillness, he could see his own reflection, but beyond that, he saw the reflection of the vast sky, boundless, open, and infinite. For a moment, he closed his eyes, his breath steady and calm, and as his thoughts settled like leaves on the forest floor, a profound realization washed over him, a truth so simple, yet so easily forgotten. Peace is not something you seek. It is something you are. It was not found in the quiet of the forest or the calm of the lake. It was not granted by the absence of suffering or the presence of comfort. It was not something that could be given or taken away. Peace was his very nature, the silent awareness that watched all things without judgment, without attachment. His journey had been a path of discovery, but in truth, it was a journey of remembrance, a return to the peace that had always been within him, like the sky that holds the clouds without being touched by them. As he opened his eyes, a gentle smile touched his lips. He watched a leaf fall from a nearby tree, drifting gracefully to the surface of the lake, where it floated quietly, and in that simple moment, he saw the essence of all that he had learned, that life is like the leaf, carried by the wind, touching the water, but never truly losing its essence. Just then, the sound of footsteps broke the silence, and the monk turned to see a young traveler approaching, his face weary, his clothes dusty from the road. The traveler bowed deeply, his voice filled with longing. "Master, I have heard of your wisdom. your peace. I have traveled far to find you, for my heart is restless, and my mind is a storm. Please, Master, teach me the way to true peace. The monk's gaze was gentle, his smile warm as the morning sun. Sit with me, my child, let us watch the lake together. The young traveler knelt beside the monk, his shoulders heavy with the weight of his troubles. Silence stretched between them, but it was not an empty silence. It was a silence filled with presence, with acceptance. After a while, the monk spoke softly. Tell me, what is it that troubles your heart? The traveler sighed, his voice trembling. I am lost, Master. I have sought happiness in wealth, but it fades. I have chased approval, but it is never enough. I have tried to control my life, but it slips through my fingers like sand. I am caught in a storm, and I do not know how to escape. The monk's fingers moved gently along his prayer beads, his voice a soothing whisper. You are like this lake, my child. The storm may stir its surface, but beneath, there is always a stillness, a depth that is untouched. The traveler looked at the lake, its surface rippling in the gentle breeze. But how do I find that stillness? Master, how do I escape the storm? The monk smiled. You do not escape, my child. You simply see. You see that the storm is only on the surface. That your thoughts, your fears, your desires, they are like the ripples. But beneath them, there is a silence that is always there, a peace that is never lost. The traveler's eyes filled with tears. But I am afraid of losing control, of losing myself. The monk placed a gentle hand on the traveler's shoulder. True peace is not about control, but about surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of fear. It is the acceptance of life as it is, the understanding that you are not the storm, you are the sky that holds it. The traveler bowed his head, his tears falling like rain, but his heart felt light, his burden lifted. Thank you, Master. I see now. I see that I have been searching for peace outside, when it has always been within me. The monk's smile deepened. Remember this, my child. You are not the storm. You are the sky. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that watches them. You are not your fears. You are the courage that embraces them. They sat together by the lake, the sun's warm light reflecting on the water, the forest a gentle whisper around them. And in that sacred silence, the traveler's restless heart found a quiet calm, a stillness that was not an absence, but a presence, the presence of his true self. As the monk rose, his prayer beads slipping through his fingers, his golden robe glowing in the sunlight, he looked at the traveler one last time. Peace is not a destination, my child. It is a way of being, a quiet presence within you that remains, even as the world changes around you. The traveler bowed deeply, his voice a whisper of gratitude. Thank you, Master. I will remember. And as the monk walked away, his steps light, his spirit free, his journey continued, not in search of peace, but as a living embodiment of it. For the monk had learned that true peace is not something you find. It is something you become. It is the stillness within the storm, the quiet beneath the noise, the light that shines even in the darkest night. And so his path stretched onward, a path of silence, of wisdom, of serene joy, a path not of escape, but of return, a return to the tranquil, boundless sky of his own heart. The journey of the wise monk, a reflection on true peace. In the quiet embrace of the forest, beneath the shade of towering trees and beside the tranquil lake, the wise monk walked his path, a path that was not merely a journey through the world but a journey into the depths of his own soul. His golden robe flowed gently with each step, his prayer beads slipped through his fingers like whispers of time, and his serene face, touched by the glow of wisdom, reflected the peace he had discovered within. But the monk's journey was not always so peaceful. He was once a seeker, like many of us, a soul caught in the storms of life, struggling to understand the world and his place in it. His journey began with questions about suffering, about the nature of happiness, about the meaning of existence. And it was in these questions that his true journey began. The monk's path was not marked by grand achievements or worldly success. It was marked by quiet moments of realization, by the gentle unfolding of wisdom. Like the petals of a lotus flower blooming in still water, his encounters were simple, yet profound. Each step, each meeting, each moment was a mirror reflecting the deeper truths of life. He learned gratitude in the golden fields, where the humble farmer taught him that true abundance is not measured by possessions, but by the heart's ability to give. He learned forgiveness from the withered tree, which gave shade even as its branches grew weak. He learned the power of silence in the bamboo grove, where the rustling leaves whispered the secrets of stillness. The monk discovered the strength of compassion in the wounded sparrow he nursed back to health, and the wisdom of non-attachment in the broken vase, which reminded him that all things are transient. He saw the beauty of humility in the empty cup, which could always receive, and the clarity of self-awareness in the clear waters of the quiet lake. But the most profound lesson the monk learned was that peace is not something to be chased, but something to be remembered. It is not found in the absence of suffering, but in the way we embrace it. It is not granted by the approval of others, but by the understanding of oneself. The monk's journey was a journey of letting go of anger, of pride, of fear, of the illusion of control. It was a journey of becoming the silent witness of his own thoughts, the stillness beneath his emotions, the sky that held the passing clouds. In the bustling village where people sought power and approval, he saw the emptiness of pride and the futility of control. In the quiet forest, where the wind whispered through the trees, he found the peace of surrender, not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of fear, the acceptance of life as it is. The monk's journey was not a story of escaping the world, but of embracing it. It was a story of transforming suffering into wisdom, of turning each challenge into a stepping stone toward inner peace. His wisdom was not a collection of doctrines or teachings, but a living experience, the gentle light of awareness that illuminated his path. And in the end, the monk became not just a wise teacher, but a mirror in which those who met him could see their own hearts, their own struggles, and their own potential for peace.